going to be talking about how we should maybe seek righteousness for ourselves so that we'll be rewarded by God. That will not be the point. That we'll be trying to talk about in the Bible study. Um, but we just gonna be talking about two people and two ways in the Bible where we see God and how he responds to certain characters showing their righteousness. So I'm going to start by just saying two verses. And the first one will be coming from Matthew chapter 5, verse 6. He says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And the other one comes from Matthew as well, and it's Matthew 6:33, and it says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So these are just two verses that are talking about righteousness, which is the main point of this Bible study that we're having right now. And so righteousness is very important, as we can see the way it is being mentioned in these two verses. But before we go any further, the first thing that we just want to ask you, we want you to define righteousness in your own way. Maybe if we can have 2 or 3 people giving us the answer, and then we'll be able to move on. What is righteousness?
She said living in accordance with the will of God. Okay. No, we had Pastor.
Okay, so we have one definition for so far, and it says living according to. Okay, thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. The Bible says Abraham believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. So, from that angle, I take righteousness as imputed not through our own deeds, but through believing in Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor. Do we have anyone else who wants to contribute? There's no wrong answer. Like you, as you can see in the Bible, righteousness was defined in many ways, and in this case, with Abraham, it was different from the way righteousness was described for other people. So, do we have anyone else who thinks they have a different version or definition of righteousness? Okay. So, the definition that we have for righteousness is it is acts that reflects God's character. And so, which means to be righteous is to meet God's perfect standard. That is the way that we want to define it today, but that is not the only way you will be able to define righteousness. So, going into the Bible, if we went to every single in the Bible that was said by God that they were righteousness, and if we went and asked them what they thought God would do, what they thought God would react to their righteousness, would find out we will be impressed with the answer that we get. They will be diverse, they will be different from everyone, because God had responded to certain situations and certain types of people showing their righteousness to him in different ways. So for the first people that I'm going to be talking about, I'll just give an example, a basic example from Daniel chapter 3, where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they refused to worship the golden image that the king had made. So you see here, they were willing even to die than worship that golden image, because they were standing by what they were saying, that we are not going to worship anything and anyone that is not the God of Israel. So from that answer that they were giving, you can see that they were willing to die. One thing that they made clear is that when they were asked, Um, they were asked, "Do you think this God that you're boasting about can save you from my hand?" And the response that they gave is, they said, "Let it be known, we know that our God, He can save us from this fire. That we know. But just in case He decides that He does not want to, we know He is capable, but just in case He decides that He does not do that, let it be known that we are going to die trusting Him." So here, when they were speaking, the Hebrew boys, you can see from their perspective that they were talking and they were saying that we know our God is able to reward us for our righteousness. If we refuse to worship other gods, we know that He will be able to come to our aid and save us from this fire. But also, we know that even though He is capable, He can decide not to do that. So it's either God can react in a certain way after you had shown some acts of righteousness, or sometimes maybe, as you can see here, maybe He was not gonna react, but you can tell for sure that if they died in the fire, and if they went to heaven, they were certainly going to get some crowns for this act of righteousness that they exhibited in the pit of fire. So we are going to also talk about one of the ways where we can see, because it's easy to wait for God to do something after showing us righteousness, but that is not the main point of this Bible study, like we said. Sometimes God is not going to respond in the way that you are expecting. So one of the most difficult ways that God can respond is not responding at that time at all. So if you're expecting God to move in a certain way and He doesn't, and then you get affected. So that's why today we're just gonna be talking about like 2 examples where God did not intervene immediately, even though His people had shown righteousness. So the examples that we'll be giving will be coming from Job and Joseph. So I'll be talking about Joseph, and it's in Genesis chapter 39. So Joseph refused to sin against God by he refused to sleep with Potiphar's wife, and that was an act of righteousness, because it came from a place where he was willing and he was tending on his decision that he was not going to let his flesh take over and be compromised. So in Genesis 39, verse 9, he said, that's not where the verse starts, so it's kind of in the middle of the verse. And it says, "How can I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" So he realized that what was about to happen, it was a sin against God. And he was saying, how can I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? So him refusing to do that sin, it was an act of righteousness. Because when Potiphar's wife tried to force him to go in bed with him, he ran away, and she remained behind, and she made up a story that Joseph had tried to force himself on her. And later, Joseph was arrested and he was thrown into the prison. And even though he was innocent, so he chose to remain righteous. Because you can see, let's say if you were Joseph in that time, and you were asked to do what he was asked to do, sometimes you might be saying, maybe there are things that I need in my life. Maybe it's the money, or even what could have happened is if Joseph had agreed to do what was being asked of him, maybe there was going to become a promotion. He would be promoted to be maybe, I don't know, any higher rank inside the house of Potiphar, but he refused to compromise. So that what he did in refusing to compromise, and even though he could have had a higher position in his master's house, it was because what was happening is this is also the way that the devil does. He tries to offer you something. He tries to come and act as if he has a better offer. He's trying to offer something, and you think that this is the best that I can get, like he did in the Garden of Eden. He was offering them to eat the fruit and saying that you have knowledge and you will be like God. And what we know from creation is when God was making men, he made them in their own image and likeness. So which means God already wanted men to become like him. So Satan was like kind of offering them a shortcut to, if you want to have to be like God, you have to eat this fruit. But we see back in creation, God already wanted men to be like him. That's why when he created them in his own image and likeness. So it was always God's plan that men, people, will become like God. But Satan always tried to come and try to make you compromise so that you can think there is a better way. He even tried to do that with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He came and he was offering him the world. But so if he did that with Adam and Eve, and he also did it against our Lord and Savior, he can also do it with you. So you might find yourself in a position where you feel like you might be forced to compromise, so that you think that there's a better offer that is coming, but there is not. Um, so what he did is he's always coming to offer you something, so that when you take that, they're like peanuts. They are nothing compared to what God is planning for you. So when you take that, what you're doing is now you become compromised, and you limit your potential. Just imagine Joseph, if he had done that, maybe he was going to end up being promoted and be a houseboy, a chief houseboy, something like that in the house of his master for the rest of his life. But him refusing and going through all what he had to go through after that, he ended up being a governor. So what I'm saying is sometimes the devil will come with options. And the options, just know that every single time it's not going to be easy. The devil is not going to try to give you something that is going to benefit you. It is only God that gives you things that will add no sorrow with it. As long as it's coming with the devil, they will have some sort of sorrow in it. Um, so that will be it for this introduction that I was just giving about this story from what happened with Joseph.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction, Malvin. So, my name is Isaac, and today we're presenting a new television show produced here at Harvest. It's called So You Think You're Righteous. And we'll be introducing and interviewing historical guests and figures from the Bible. So, this is not Malvin, actually. That's actually Joseph. So, if y'all would like to give a hand of Joseph, he came all the way from his land to talk to us today. So, thank you and welcome to So You Think You're Righteous. All right, thank you so much. Okay, so, all right. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. So, before we hear from Mr. Joseph, thank you for coming, by the way. Long chariot ride here. Before we hear from Mr. Joseph, let's hear from some people in the audience. How do you guys think that God responds to our righteousness? And is it always like an instant thing, or does it take some time sometimes in between? How do you guys? Let's hear from the crowd. You know, Mr. Joseph wants to hear from the 21st century, so let's show him some love. How do you think God responds to our righteousness? Does anyone have an answer? How do you think God responds to our righteousness? And do you think he has a one size fits all, or does he have something in between for different people? Or does he respond the same way to everyone?
I think God responds the same way, but then depending on the person you are, it determines when he responds. I think he responds to everybody the same way. I'll give you a verse here from Psalms 34, verse 19 says, "The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all." So, no matter how many troubles you go through as a righteous man, he will deliver you. But I guess when does he deliver you is what is different.
show. Mr. Joseph, thank you so much for having us today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to be here. Great fan of you. Today, we're going to talk about your side of the story, and it's going to be an honor. So, I just want to know, Mr. Joseph, tell us about your story. You know, we always read about you, but we want to hear from the horse's mouth. What happened? What happened to you?
Well, I know that you always hear about me, and mostly it's because of my father Jacob and his father Abraham. That's how it all started. So I know my father is famous as well because you guys, this generation of people, when you're praying, you always include them in your prayers. So even though he's my father, you don't talk about me, but it's also an honor to be here. So um, I've had the privilege of hearing what this generation of people think righteousness is. And I would just like to give a short story of what was going on at the time. So what happened is everything was just happening so fast. Because I remember one time I was very cool with my brothers and we were playing football in the back. And then one day, my dad just sent me to go to somewhere near Shechem because they were supposed to be in Shechem with the sheep. And that's where I was sent to. And when I went there, I met a man that was just walking around that place, and he told me, and I asked him, like, have you seen my brothers anywhere here? And what he told me, and he said, we have not, I heard them, I saw your brothers some while ago, and I heard them saying that they are going to go to Shechem, somewhere near Dotan. That's where they were going.
Right.
So I followed them there.
No GPS, by the way. No GPS during this time. Yes.
It was hard work. So I was not expecting to go anywhere else, but I did. So what I did when I could not find them in Shechem, and then I went to Dotam, somewhere near Dotam that they were staying. And I went there and I found them. And what was surprising is as soon as I got there, what they did is they took off my coat
Yeah,
and
I
they
heard
threw
about
me
that
into a
crazy
pit.
code.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't talk about that coat anyway because I still have another coat that I made, but then I left it because in this generation, if I get seen wearing that coat, it might become something they might misunderstand me. So I'm no longer wearing that.
Okay,
Yes.
The Egyptian camel
Yeah.
leather. Yeah, that was
Yes.
interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So as soon as I get there, they take me, they remove my coat, and they throw me into the fire, which means these people, they were already planning about this because I didn't see them making a meeting or anything. As soon as I get there, they grab me and they throw me into a pit.
So that was your brothers, like
My
young Benjamin
brothers,
too, little Benjamin.
my brothers, Benjamin, he was not part of it.
Okay.
He was not part of the mess.
Ruben
You
and
know.
everybody.
Yes,
Man, that's hey, your own brothers, man.
my own brothers.
That's so they used to play football together. You know, do all sorts of things. You know, he was the favorite. His brothers were plotting on him. You know, pretty crazy. So, Mr. Joseph, how did that make you feel? Would you say you felt betrayed and God left you in that moment?
That is a good question, but maybe what I can say is, growing up, I was a person who was always dreaming. Right, I always had dreams, and every single time those dreams, when I had dreams, I would talk to my family and I would sit down with them. I would discuss the dreams that I had with them. I would tell them I had this dream where I was the sun and you were the moon and the stars, and then you were bowing down to me and all that stuff. So I don't think they liked it, and sometimes they thought I was crazy because it didn't make sense to me. They were saying, "So are you trying to say that we are going to bow down to you and worship you?" But I was just saying the dreams that I was having, and I was telling them, right? So when all this was now starting to happen, I began asking myself, I've been dreaming all my life up to now, right? And the dreams that I'm having is when I'm dreaming, having this sort of like, it looks like God is something that special that is planned for me. I'm meant to be someone in life, right? But then these things, they start happening. My brothers, they betray me and they throw me into the pit. And after that, they actually ended up selling me to the Ishmaelites. So I was asking myself in that time, but God, I have been dreaming, I've been having dreams all the entirety of my life. And this is not how those dreams were going. I was something, and I actually believe that I had a big purpose in my life. So I felt as if maybe those dreams that I had, I began to question myself: is it I was talking to God? Were these dreams coming from God, or it is just because I was just sleeping and then I was just dreaming? But which was odd, because those dreams I was having the same, almost the same dreams over again, and if you interpret them, they made the same way. So I was asking myself, was it God that was really talking to me, or it was just something else? So at that point, of course, with the question that you said, I felt betrayed with my brothers. I know we did not always agree on a lot of things, especially on the dreams, because of course I was not the oldest. So even my older brothers, they would not think of themselves actually bowing down to me or respecting me in any of that form. So it kind of made sense at first, but also I felt a huge betrayal from my brothers. And it's easy to say that with the way I was interpreting my dreams, I felt as if those dreams were coming from God. So it was easy for me to interpret that these dreams, it was God communicating with me. So when these things started happening, for some reason I said, so God, why were you showing me this? Why are you telling me this if this is not the way things are going right now? So to some certain extent, I can't say I felt betrayed by God, but I was just questioning, like, with these dreams, I thought you were talking to me. I was now confused, so I had a lot of things happening in my mind, and I also needed a lot of answers.
So do you have all this direct access from God, right? You have these dreams, you're dreaming all the time. Must have been vivid, but uh, you know, on the human aspect, you were betrayed by your brothers, like you said. But did you ever say there was a point in time where you lost trust in God?
Oh, yeah, that is a good question as well. Um, so when everything happened and I was sold to the Ishmaelites and I went to Egypt, that's where they took me. It's not like I went because it was not according to my own will. They took me there. And I went into the house of Potiphar, that's where I was bought, and I was in the house there. And what happened, a lot of things happened, and I know you guys, you read about me all the time, so I'm not gonna go into detail. But I ended up in prison. And when I was sitting in prison, a lot of things were also happening. So that question that you're asking me, was there any time that I felt that God had left me, and where I was maybe starting to lose trust in Him? I think as a person who grew up dreaming, I still have that belief that it was not just me dreaming. God was actually talking to me. So I was hanging on to that hope. I was still optimistic that those dreams, they did mean something. So even though I could also see before I was sent to prison, even I found favor in the eyes of my master. And also, when that happened, when I ended up going to prison, I also found favor. Even the gatekeeper, the prison keeper, he would give me all the people that were in the prison, he would put them under my hand. So I could see, even though I was in the prison, I was seeing that grace of God. So I could see that nothing happens like this if it's not the hand and grace of God. So I still believe that God, I still trusted God. I was still content with what was happening. So I really can say that there came a time where I didn't trust God, because even everything was happening, everything that was going on, it was not something that I was imagining when I was dreaming when I was young. But in everything that was happening, I could still see that somewhere, somehow, the hand and the grace of God was upon me. So I really can't say that I lost trust in Him.
That's that is a powerful thing to hear. In all that during your imprisonment, they forgot about you, the baker and all those guys. You still kept it going. So tell me something, Joseph. The way that God responded to you leading a righteous life. You had these dreams. No one believed you. You went to prison, and for things you didn't do, but you still came out of there a leader. Do you think? How can I say? Is this how you expected it to happen?
Well, definitely not the way that I was expecting to happen. And that I think it's now the fourth time I'll be repeating. I was a big dreamer. I was always dreaming. So
Yes.
this way these things were happening is definitely not the way I was expecting. And also, even after when I went into Potiphar's house, I ran that day. I really ran. And after that, I was thinking that after doing such a righteous thing, maybe I would see an angel coming from heaven and say, "Oh, well done, my son. Your father in heaven is happy for you for this righteous thing that you've done. You've run away from sin. You've refused to be compromised." So you would feel like maybe after doing something special like this, it was not an easy because Potiphar's okay, I'm not gonna go into there. But it was not an easy thing. So I was thinking that with the way that I ran that day, with what I did, I was hoping that maybe I could have a certain encounter with God because of how I showed some righteousness. Maybe on my way after running, I would see an angel and I don't know, receive something, some sort of power. I don't know what I was expecting. I was just expecting something to happen. But that is not what happened because I was caught and then I was sent to the prison. So it's definitely not the way I was expecting thing. I was expecting since I've done such a good thing and to show God some righteousness from me, I was expecting that maybe I could be rewarded with something, which is not what happened. And I went to the prison and things did not go really well the way that I was expecting to. So he did not at that time respond in a way that I was expecting. I believe that answers the question that you have.
Man, that is really powerful. And would you guys please give it a hand for Mr. Joseph here? Came all the way, man. From the Egyptian embassy. He was still handling business over there. So yeah, thank you so much for that. And like you said, he said dreams, dream dreams. Because you never know where they'll take you, and stay righteous with God, not to expect a reward, but because we know that we are entitled to be rewarded as His children, but as righteous children. So thank you so much, Mr. Joseph, for coming.
It was a pleasure. Okay, so now now this is me. It's no longer Joseph. Yeah, so now we are also going to have the privilege of one of the people that the Bible. He's a rich
Thank you.
guy.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
a rich guy. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
So
Welcome.
yes.
Welcome to Job Enterprises. Paid for the show. All right. Thank you. All right. As you guys all know me, my name's Job. A great follower of God. Really, wealthy for my time. Very prominent. Hey, can someone pull up my stats? Actually, can someone read Job 1 verse 3? I was like really super rich, by the way. So somebody just pull up my stats. Job 1 verse 3. Anyone willing to read? Anyone?
Job is trying to show off.
I thought I had a scribe that I came with, but I don't know where he is. Job 1 verse 3. And I'll, yeah, thank you. Yes.
His possessions
Mm-hmm.
also were 7,000 sheep,
Mm-hmm.
3,000 camels,
Mm-hmm.
500 yoke of oxen,
Mm-hmm.
500 fellow female donkeys,
Boom.
and very many servants.
Mm-hmm.
And that man was the greatest of all the men of the East.
Hey, yeah. That's my. I mean, with inflation, what I'm saying, 3,000 donkeys would be 3,005. But all I'm saying is, I was that guy, and Malvin, man, I had like 10 kids, like 3 daughters, 7 kids. Can't even remember them. They all passed away. But yeah, a drastic, just a drastic change just happened in my life. I was just there, happy, lived in the land of Uz, and things just started happening. My dog, Poco, just passed out while just in front of me. Then the cows, and I was like, oh, maybe anthrax. we didn't even have anthrax then. Camels, donkeys, kids passing away. I was like, God, what's going on, God? I mean, you know what I mean? I've been righteous. Malvin, what would you do, man? You just all your life possessions are just gone.
Wow, it's a pleasure that you said my name that way. Someone with a great CV like you just mentioned my name, so it's honor.
Yes, thank you.
But I want to throw this question back to you
Mhm.
because I feel like these people they can have a lot of time to ask me questions. So I'm not gonna say a lot of things right now. I want them to hear from you.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to ask you like, how did you feel when all this was happening to you?
Right. I had a scribe that would write down these things for me. I think in is me verse or Job 1, sorry. Job 1 verse 20 to 22. I can read at that point, but at this point Job stood up, tore his clothes, shaved his head, and fell to the ground in an attitude of worship. Then he said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I must depart. The Lord has given, the Lord has removed. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Despite this, Job did not sin or blame God. I just had to read that because if I paraphrased it, y'all was not going to believe me. But I would say this: I felt, I don't know how I felt, man, in that time. I felt betrayed by the world, by everything. I was so confused. The livelihood I would live, not anymore. Back in that time, if you wore sackcloth, y'all know what sackcloth is. Y'all call them cargo pants now, but yeah, had to like wear sackcloth, and I didn't even want to wear my regular clothes. They didn't even fit me. Looked too, you know what I mean? So I would say that in that moment, I felt very, very, very. I was so down in the dumps, but I still, you know what I mean? I had that. I still felt like I was righteous to God. Like I had questions about Him. I would even curse the day I was born, and I was like, God, why, what's going on with this? Why was I born for me to suffer? So just to sum it up, it was a bad time of my life, and I don't wish that upon any man. So yes, it was a bad time.
Well, you are hearing from the man himself. I see that he pretended as if he was reading, but that was coming from his head. I actually notice right now that he's a man of pride. Yeah. So, uh, one thing I would also want to ask you, Mr. Job. We all know all these things that were happening to you, uh, because there was a point where everything was going well, and there was a conversation that happened somewhere, and God allowed the devil to test you to a certain extent. And I just want to ask you, like, when all this was happening, when you're losing everything in your life that you had worked for, I don't know if I can say worked for, because God basically gave you everything. But I mean,
Touche.
that's
Potato,
fine.
potato.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you lost everything that God had given you, I mean, was there any time that you felt like giving up?
I would say uh, I felt I. It was more so there was like a little glimmer of hope, like this much, like through a keyhole. But the rest of it, it felt like I was on trial, man. Like the devil is the defendant with his army of attorneys, and God is the district attorney. He's also my lawyer. He's the judge. I'm the plaintiff, and that's how I took it and just went with it because I was like, this is where I am now. This is the reality. It's not because I was not righteous, but it is because of the will of God that this is happening. Had to accept that. So the only thing I could do was start to question him. Like ask him why these things were happening to me. Um, if you look in my book, Job 3, verse 1
Okay.
to 27, there's a dialogue there. A couple of my friends came to. I was under a tree wearing some sackcloth. Man, you let yourself go, bro. Like you let yourself go. Like come on, man. Like you, Job. You know what I mean?
Just give up.
Yeah, you ain't coming to the chariot races no more. Like it was crazy. They said, and that's when I realized, whoa, when people that know you, and when people that know you personally, They come and talk to you in your times of trials and tribulations. Sometimes it hits hard. It hits hard because you're just like, man, yeah, these are the, you know what I mean? These are my guys. So in that moment, my friends were posing some questions to me, like, this God that you worship, if he is truly, truly, truly righteous, if he's truly your God, then why are you still worshiping him in all this? But I knew that God had a plan for me, and I felt in my heart that that's what we had to do. And I would say that my friends, though, they that conversation we had, I began to question God even further and harder into what was going on with me, and ev- like yelling at God, not like yelling at God, but you take away some candy from a baby and it's like, Dad, why? You can think about it like that. I was very, very inquisitive, very, very mad, but
Yeah,
I had to go through with it.
yeah, that would have been a normal reaction for someone. I don't think any of us here that are listening right now would be able to do what you did, and the faith that you kept, and you did not, you refused to sin against God, and you refused to curse Him, even though you were going through all those things. And one thing that you might not know right now, but I know because I was part of this audience. These people, before I came up here to interview you, I was sitting in the middle, in the crowd, and they had the pleasure of sitting down and listen to Joseph speak with Isaac. He's no longer here, but there was a conversation here, and they had the pleasure to speak to one of the greatest in Joseph. And Joseph also talked about how when he was going through what he was going through, and he was saying that he was optimistic and he waited, he just trusted God.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is in the end, something happened and he ended up like interpreting dreams, like I'm pretty sure yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he ended up interpreting dreams,
He was
and
the
then
dreamer
what
kid.
happened is he was taken out of the prison,
Yeah.
and he was made the governor. So in what I'm saying is, at some point Joseph was restored, and when he was restored with everything, and also he was given more, because there was a plan that God had for Joseph in the beginning that he was dreaming in his dreams. So it ended up happening, but after a long time of suffering, right? So he was restored, and also things went the way they were supposed to be, where he was dreaming as a ruler, someone who was an important figure. So he was restored. So my question to you is, just like Joseph, he was restored, right? And we also know your story, but we want to ask you from your own certain point of view, and so that we can hear what you have to say about it. Do you feel that you were restored? I mean, we might even
Let me
answer
tell.
to that because we read about you.
I'll
but we
tell you
just wanna
this.
look for you.
I'll tell you this, Malvin. My book is the most complicated, one of the most complicated books in the Bible, and it doesn't really have a conclusion. So, like I said, friends, family, society came down upon me, and yeah, I fleshly responded by rage baiting God a little bit. I'll be honest. Then God came down and spoke to me in the book of Job 38, actually from 38 to 41, recorded conversation with me and God. And I'll summarize it and say that the things he was saying, like, do you know who feeds like, I'll tell you, do you know who feeds the birds in the morning? Or like, who is responsible for the fish going the way they're supposed to go, or keeping the ocean and the tides the way they are? Like the Indian Ocean could overflow into Africa, like that. Or who's responsible for turning the sun on and turning the sun off? You know what I mean? Man, I felt bad. I was like, I was just responsible for like 3,005. I mean, it says 3,000, maybe 3,500 donkeys, and yeah, that's an earthly thing. But God's righteousness is way beyond what we can imagine and see as a blessing. So I would say that it wasn't more of a restoration of like my life or everything. I mean, I did get that back, but it was a restoration of my mindset that happened there, because after if you read Job 40, in there I say, I am nothing. How could I ever find the answers? I'll cover my mouth with my hand. I've said too much already, and I have nothing more to say. So that's all I could say after that. Like I wouldn't say it was a restoration. So the it's a big cliffhanger. I wish there was Job 2 season 2 because I would have really wanted to know a few more chapters about my life. Or actually I do know, but I wish you guys got to read a little bit more about that. But I would say that Joseph, that kid, he had optimism. Um, I was not coming from a place of optimism, but God still came and helped us out the same way. You know what I mean? So Malvin. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great show going on.
So yeah, before you go, I just wanted to, you mentioned something about Joseph at the end. I don't know
Yes.
if he was here. I don't know if he was gonna agree with what you said, but I mean, we're not going to get into there. And I can see that your type of restoration, like you say, you were both restored. But can we say it's not like I'm trying to undermine what happened to you, but I just wanted to ask you, since you mentioned Joseph, you went there, so I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
So the type of restoration that happened into your life, it was more of you being restored, right?
Yes.
But with Joseph, we can see that the plan, it was not only for one person.
Yes.
It was for him. He was part of the plan, but God was doing that for a greater purpose. He had his father, Jacob, and his siblings in mind. He had all the people in Egypt and around Egypt in mind. So that restoration was benefiting a lot of people. But I was listening to what you were saying, and mostly it was about you. And you also wanted them to write chapter 2 about you.
Yeah.
So
Yes. So I would say this. That's very smart. We would hire him. At Job Enterprises back in the day. Very analytical. I would say that he came up with a great point. Sometimes the restoration is not for you. Sometimes it's for someone else. Like my story and all that stuff is not even for me. It's to teach other people that are failing in their righteousness. It's like, every time, someone's like, oh, man," I'm like, look what happened to me. So I would say that sometimes the restoration is not for you. It could be for a greater good or for a greater cause. Sometimes the trial is not for you, but it's for a greater cause. But if you are in righteousness by yourself or in your society, then God's righteousness will come upon you just like it came upon those guys, despite the trials and tribulations that could happen.
oh, thank you so much, Mr. Job. I mean, you can see even his confidence was restored. He's boastful, and also his skin, you can see he doesn't have any scars from those sores that he had. But I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Job, for being here with us. And I'm pretty sure that the people that were here, they learned a lot of things, and they got to have the privilege of meeting one of the greats. So we want you to thank you for having a great time with us. Thank you.
Thank you.